For 15 years. I paid the utility bills, all while he sent money to his real family in a place I never knew existed. The wooden box was heavy, buried deep in his desk drawer. Inside were dozens of handwritten letters, photographs, and a thick file tied with a red ribbon. On the first letter, faded ink read, "Thank you for never leaving me and our child." My chest tightened, like invisible hands were crushing my ribs. I didn't dare exhale. It felt like I had been moved into a world where my existence had never been real. If the man you've lived with for decades was always true to someone else, how would you know you haven't already been replaced? My name is Clara Whitlow. I am 65 years old, and I live in Fort Collins, Colorado. I used to work part-time at a small pharmacy in town, the kind where you recognize every face and call everyone by name. I married Dennis Whitlow when I was still young, still learning what trust really meant. He was a chemical engineer, stationed in Texas most of his career. His job kept him away. He'd come home once a month, sometimes less. But I waited. I kept the house. I kept the rhythm. I kept the faith. We lived in a one-story grey-roofed home, surrounded by red maples. I tended the garden. He scribbled in leather-bound journals, still writing things by hand, even though he was fluent in code and software. That was Dennis, always disciplined, always mysterious in his silence. 2 years ago, he retired. That's when something in him changed. He grew restless. The air in Colorado, he said, felt too dry for him. He complained of joint pain, of grey winters. Then he brought up the coast, said he missed the breeze near Corpus Christi, the salt on his tongue. He asked if we could move back south, somewhere warm, somewhere closer to where he used to work. I agreed. After all, what did we have to lose? We put the house up for sale. Or rather, he did. I let him handle the calls, the papers. I trusted that after 40 years of marriage, he still saw us as we. I spent my days boxing books, sealing photo albums, wrapping dishes in newspaper. His study was the last place I touched. He told me he'd pack it himself, said it was too dusty, too technical. One afternoon, Dennis went out to meet the realtor. I stood in the hallway, staring at the closed door to his office. I opened it. The drawer at the bottom right of his desk had a faulty hinge. It had been that way for years. I bent down, tugged gently, and it creaked open. Inside was a large wooden box, heavy, scratched with time. I lifted the lid. Letters, photographs, dozens of them, all signed Eleanor, a boy in several pictures, playing basketball, smiling beside Dennis. Homemade birthday cards, written in uneven kids' handwriting. One said, "To Daddy, love you always." I thought maybe they were from a nephew, a cousin, but then I found the red ribbon. It held together a stack of papers. My hands were cold when I untied it. The first page was a birth certificate. Father Dennis Whitlow, Mother Elena R. Sanchez, address El Paso, Texas. The child's name was Nathan, born in 2012. That made him 13. My fingers slipped off the paper. I sat back, breath short. I called Dennis. He didn't answer. I moved to his laptop, same password he always used. It opened. There were emails, dozens of them. One read, "We'll wait until the house sells. I know you'll keep your promise to us." Another began with, "My love," and ended with, "Nathan misses you." Then I saw the most recent one. From him. He had written, "Once we move them out, I'll file for divorce. I want you and Nathan with me in California." I remember gripping the edge of the desk, the same desk where I had left birthday cards, grocery lists, notes for our shared life. He had another woman, not a fling, Not a moment of weakness. A life, a son. And every month, he sent them $2,500. Quietly. From an account I never saw. It was financial infidelity. It was betrayal written in numbers, in transfers, in silent years. I sat in the middle of a room full of boxes, each one packed with trust, while I was folding towels, sealing jars of jam, wrapping up framed photos of our wedding day. He was planning a new home with someone else, not metaphorically, literally. Our house was to be sold for them. I looked around the study, its walls lined with certificates and books. This was the place where he lived as himself. Not with me, with them. This was no longer a home. It was a launch pad for another family. It was elder financial abuse dressed as organization. The deception wasn't loud. It was measured, professional, neat. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. It felt like my spine cracked inward. I heard the sound of a car passing outside, but it was distant, warped, like underwater noise. My hands trembled as I tried to close the box. The lid didn't fit properly. I tried again. It groaned. I gave up. I picked up a photo, put it down, picked up another. I had no idea what I was doing. Then I reached for a tissue and started wiping the desk, as if dust could explain what had happened. But the desk was already clean. He once called me his home. Now I was just a waypoint, something temporary. Maybe I had always been. This wasn't just a family betrayal story. It was the end of a woman's place in a life she helped build. This was never just about infidelity. It was a methodical reallocation of marital resources without consent, without conversation, without conscience. Some people justify secret families as complicated love. But when money meant for a shared life is funneled elsewhere in silence, it ceases to be love. It becomes fraud. Dennis built a second life, not just in heart, but on paper, in digits and transactions. He opened separate accounts, set up automatic transfers, sent thousands of dollars each month under my nose. That wasn't absent-mindedness. It was a plan. And I, on my side, had believed that being married meant we made decisions together. I had never read the fine print of our finances, never asked where the money went. That silence was my mistake. I began with the truth I had uncovered, and I took it to a family law attorney in Colorado. I brought everything: bank statements, printed emails, the child's birth certificate, photographs, and records of suspicious withdrawals I found through months of backtracking. The first thing we pursued was legal recognition of financial misconduct. Under Colorado's equitable distribution law, a spouse who secretly depletes marital assets can be penalized. Dennis's quiet transfers, over a span of years, met that threshold. The court acknowledged that what he had done wasn't just betrayal, it was financial manipulation during marriage. The outcome was concrete. I was awarded the right to recover a significant portion of the money he had funneled out. When the division of property was finalized in the divorce, that amount was deducted from his share. He didn't just lose my trust, he lost his advantage. Next, I addressed my own security. I reviewed every financial document in my name, especially those dated before the marriage. My retirement accounts, IRA and 401k, and a small inheritance from my parents were all properly documented. With help, I submitted proof that these were separate property, not marital, not up for debate. This time, I protected my retirement dreams the way they should have been guarded from the start. The court respected the classification. I kept every cent of what I had earned and saved, along with the title to a small piece of land in Oregon I had almost forgotten I owned. Finally, I revised every legal document tied to my future. I updated my living will. I removed Dennis from any authority related to my medical care or estate. Instead, I appointed my sister and my daughter from a previous marriage as my designated agents and beneficiaries. Now, every asset I have is under my control. Every decision is made with my knowledge. There are no more shadows in my financial life. This wasn't just a marital betrayal. It was a lesson in the importance of vigilance, even when you believe love is enough. I didn't go back to Fort Collins. The house was sold, the boxes never unpacked. Instead, I moved north to a small town along the edge of Lake Michigan, where a friend from college had offered her family's old cabin. It was quiet. It was worn with age. It was perfect. I didn't need much anymore. Each morning, I brewed coffee just the way I liked it. I watered the orchids that lined the porch. I read handwritten letters from my granddaughter in Florida. I learned how to bake apple crisp, something Dennis never cared for. I had always skipped it. Now, I made it for myself. On Thursdays, I volunteered at the church downtown, teaching a group of teenage girls about money. Not just saving, but understanding. I taught them the difference between shared property and separate property. I told them how not knowing could cost you everything. I didn't speak about my story, but I didn't have to. They saw it in the way I taught slow, firm, certain. Dennis moved to California, just as he had planned. But this time, only half the wealth went with him. And the woman he had hidden all those years, she was no longer a secret, and no longer supported by my sacrifices. I never asked him to come back. I never asked him anything at all. I simply returned to myself, and I never left again. I share this not as revenge, but as clarity, as someone who lived through the shadows and now stands in the sunlight. This is what a cheating husband took from me, but it is not what defines me. If you're watching this and wondering if something feels off, do not ignore it. Do not wait for truth to arrive in a wooden box. Tonight, do one thing. Open the financial folder in your home. List every shared account, every private one. Make a copy of any transaction over $1,000 in the last 3 years. If something doesn't add up, ask without apology. Ask because you deserve to know. This is not about suspicion. It's about ownership of your life, of your rights, of your peace. There are lawyers, there are advocates, there are women like me, and there is you. If this story speaks to something buried in your chest, leave a comment. You never know who else needs to hear your voice before they find their own.